Finally, we have a little break after class. I think that economic lecture was quite intense, right?
Yeah, I agree, especially the topic of unemployment. It had a lot to process.
Hey guys, take a look at this. I just came across this article about the impact of COVID-19 on Malaysia's tourism sector. Oh, what does it say, Nasha? It says that the tourism sector was badly affected during the pandemic when the international border closed and business was restricted. Everything slowed down.
Yes, you're right. It also stated that this situation had a big impact to the tourism employee in Malaysia, especially the job is depending on the tourism sector.
That's remind me of the movement control order, which is MCO, was first enforced. A lot of people lost their jobs during that time, right? That's it related to our topic, which is unemployment.
Exactly. No, I remember our lecturer already explained it very clearly.
So class, please be seated. Today we are going to learn about something important, which is the topic of unemployment. So, what is unemployment and what are the types of unemployment?
If someone isn't working, does that always mean that they are unemployed? Actually, not everyone without a job is considered as unemployed. Take a look at this chart. It divides people into two main groups, which is active and inactive. Those in active group are part of labor force that includes everyone or anyone who is employed and actively searching for a job. These are people included in unemployment statistic. On the other hand, those who are in inactive group are not working and not looking for a job include students, full-time caregiver, retirees, people who are sick. They are not counted as unemployed. The diagram shows how only those in actual labor supply are considered when measuring unemployment. So in simple terms, to be unemployed, you must be jobless, able to work, and actively trying to find a job. Unemployment isn't just one thing, it comes in different forms depending on the situation. There are four main types, which is the first one is frictional unemployment. This happens when someone is temporarily out of work while transitioning between jobs. It's usually short-term and even considered desirable because it shows there is mobility in the labor market. For example, a fresh graduate actively looking for their first job. Second is structural unemployment. This occurs when there is a long-term mismatch between the skills that the worker have and the skills needed for the available job. This could happen due to the changes in technology, automation, or shift in job location. For instance, if a factory replaces workers with machine and they lack the new required skill, they become structural unemployed. Third is cyclical unemployment. It's caused by the recession phase of the business cycle. When the overall economy slows down, the demand drops, the company reduces production and lay off workers. This happened during the COVID-19 pandemic when Malaysia's tourism sector was severely affected, business closed, tourists disappeared, and thousands of workers lost their job. Lastly, seasonal unemployment arises in industries that operate only specific times of the year. It's caused by changes in seasons, fashion, and natural job cycle. For example, beach resort staff in Malaysia may only be employed during school holiday or dry season. So based on the article, the job losses in Malaysia's tourism sector during the COVID-19 pandemic are a clear example of cyclical unemployment. This is because the workers doesn't lose their job due to the lack of skills or performance, but because the economy itself slowed down. Travel restriction and declining in the tourist arrival caused many businesses to shut down, which directly affected employment. So now, let us take a look at the impact of the COVID-19 crisis on the unemployment, its effect to the economy, and recovery from the pandemic.
Now, I will be presenting on the impact of the COVID-19 crisis on unemployment, especially in the tourism sector. One of the most serious impact was the closure of Malaysia's international border, which happened early in the pandemic. According to the article, Malaysia lost RM90 billion in tourism receipts due to border closure. Tourism sector employment dropped 2.9% from 2019 to 2020. With border shut, international tourists could no longer enter Malaysia, leading to an immediate and dramatic drop in tourism service demand. This means that hotels, tour agency and others saw their customer base vanish. As businesses lost revenue, many were forced to lay off staff or shut down completely. This shows how quickly job loss can occur when an entire industry is suddenly disconnected from its main source of income. Moving on to the second point, another major blow to the workforce came from the Standard Operating Procedure, which is SOP, introduced during the Movement Control Order. SOP were important to control the spread of the virus, but they severely limited face-to-face interaction. Sectors like tourism, hospitality, and events depend heavily on direct human contact, thinking of roles like tour guides and restaurant servers. When this service could no longer operate, many workers were sent home, especially those without formal contract. The article notes that only 45% of tourist spending directly benefit tourism and the rest goes into other sectors like retail, food supply chains, and logistics. Next, let's look at how restriction on business operation create additional unemployment, especially among small and medium enterprise. According to the article, the tourism sector employment capacity dropped by 2.9% since many tourism-related businesses are small, like travel agency and family-run guest house. The impact was very large. This created a ripple effect across the economy as more workers become unemployment due to business closure. As a result, many SMEs had to reduce the numbers of staff, cut worker salary, or close completely. This caused many workers, especially those with low income or few skills, to lose their jobs. These workers are usually the first to be affected because they are often hired for basic roles and are not protected by long-term contract. Now, let's discuss a more indirect but equally serious on unemployment caused by health-related issues. The labor chain reaction during the COVID-19 crisis was positive. When employees became sick or were required to quarantine, they were unable to report to work. This disrupted business operation, causing delay in production and service delivery. With reduced productivity, companies struggled to make a profit. To prevent further financial losses, many businesses were forced to lay off workers. This contributed to a rise in unemployment, especially in sectors already under pressure from the pandemic. Without healthy workers, the system could not function, leading to more job loss. Supporting this, unemployment in Malaysia rose to 773,000 individuals in 2020, an increase of nearly 40% compared to 2019, a dramatic shift in just 1 year. We are now moving to the informal sector, which include workers like street vendor and freelance workers. These individuals were hit the hardest during the pandemic, and yet they are often excluded from official data. Why? Because many of them do not have formal contracts, so EPF or legal protection. So when lockdown banned events and public gathering, they instantly lost their income with no compensation or job security. In fact, the number of informal workers in Malaysia rose from 1.26 million in 2019 to 1.3 million in 2021, showing that more people are pushed into disabled and insecure work just to survive.
Next, I will be presenting on the effect of unemployment to the economy in the tourism industry. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, tourism sector contributed around 50% of Malaysia's GDP and supported more than 3.5 million jobs direct and indirectly. However, during the pandemic, travel restrictions and lockdowns caused many businesses to close, and thousands of workers in the tourism industry lost their jobs. According to the article, the gross value added of Malaysian tourism sector dropped by 17.1% from RM 240.5 billion in 2019 to RM 199.4 billion in 2020. That means RM 41 billion in economic activity was lost because the tourism industry was not functioning as usual. This shows how important tourism jobs are to our national economy. Tourism contributes 15.9% of Malaysia's total employment and over 30% of GDP in 2019. The national GDP shrank by 5.6% in 2020. Tourism contributes 15.9% of Malaysia's total employment and over 30% of GDP in 2019. The national GDP shrank by 5.6% in 2020. Next, the second effect, which is the decline in consumer spending. On year 2019, the tourist arrivals are 26.1 million, while in year 2020, it drops to 4.3 million. There is also an increase in the number of hotels and rooms available by 513 and 16,849. The component of tourism spending shows that shopping, food and beverage, accommodation, and transportation all declined sharply. In the graph above, show that tourist arrivals fell from 26.1 million in 2019 to just 4.3 million in 2020. The tourism receipt fell from RM 86.1 billion to just RM 12.7 billion in 2020, a massive drop. Hotel guests dropped significantly in all states. For an example, in Kuala Lumpur, total hotel guests fell by 66.7% compared to 2019.
For an example, in Penang, famous for its street food and night markets, many hawker stores reported almost no customer. In Kuala Lumpur, shopping malls were almost empty because unemployed. Lastly, the effect of unemployment in Malaysia tourism industry, which is government revenue and spending. When many workers in the tourism industry lost their jobs and business shut down, the government also suffered financially in two ways. First, the government collect less revenue because fewer people were earning salaries and fewer businesses were making profits. Second, at the same time, the government had to spend more money to support unemployed persons and help the tourism industry survive. For an example, the Prihatin Rakyat Economic Stimulus Package provide an cash aid to families and wage subsidies to the employers. The government gave financial support to hotel and tourism operators to stay open. They also offer a training program for unemployed workers to learn new skills. All of these programs cost the government billions of ringgit and increase the budget deficit.
The Malaysian government played a crucial role in reviving the tourism industry after the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2020, when borders closed and travel halted, tourist arrivals dropped sharply from over 26 million in 2019 to just 4.3 million. This caused the tourism sector's earnings to fall drastically, affecting thousands of workers and businesses. To support recovery, the government took immediate action. One key move was the allocation of 1.6 billion in budget 2022 specifically for the tourism sector. 600 million went to a wage subsidy program to help employees pay staff during low-income periods. Another 600 million was for financing support, including loans through the Penjana Tourism Financing Scheme. 85 million was directed to tour operators. 82 million was used for tourism project development, like upgrading attractions and facilities. Funds were also allocated for infrastructure repair, budget hotel grants, and arts and culture programs. 60 million was used to boost domestic tourism and 20 million to promote health tourism. On top of that, tax incentives were provided to support both businesses and individuals in the tourism industry. Then, in 2022, the Tourism Recovery Framework 2.0 was introduced. It focused on 5 key strategies to support the sector's revival. These included providing financial aid and training to tourism businesses, boosting traveler confidence through international promotion and health protocols, and developing innovative tourism products aligned with the new travel trends. The framework also emphasized sustainable and inclusive tourism by improving infrastructure and empowering women, youth, and local communities. Lastly, it aimed to strengthen the industry's long-term resilience by enhancing crisis preparedness and encouraging digital adoption. These efforts produced real results. In 2023, the tourism sector recorded 154.5 billion ringgit in revenue, contributing to 15.1% to Malaysia's GDP. This was a huge improvement compared to just 28.2 billion ringgit in 2021. In short, the government's strategic planning, funding, and promotion played a major role in rebuilding Malaysia's tourism industry. It transformed the sector from one of the hardest hit by COVID-19 into one of the fastest to recover.
In conclusion, the COVID-19 pandemic led to a sharp rise in cyclical unemployment within Malaysia's tourism sector as the international border closure, SOP restriction, and business shutdowns forced widespread job losses across both formal and informal workforce. This surge in unemployment triggered a domino effect, which is contracting GDP, weakening consumer spending, and slashing government tax revenue, while simultaneously increasing demand for wage subsidies and financial support. In response, the government implemented targeted recovery measures including stimulus packages, business financing and tax incentive, as well as Tourism Recovery Framework 2.0. These strategic interventions play a crucial role in stabilizing the sector and driving its recovery, highlighting the importance of resilience policy planning and inclusive economic support in navigating national crisis.